Happy greetings once again. This is your old friend Chuck, and this is a word from Chuck. A little bit of pastoral encouragement, I hope, as you go through your week, and a little bit of a forecast about what's to come. I should say that today, Thursday, is the first day of a 2-day Cooperative Baptist Fellowship online convention. Now, that sounds new to you. It's new to me too. So far this day, I've had an opportunity to join in 2 sessions where it has been broadcast through the miracle that we have now of modern technology and the internet. So I'm trying to keep up with what is happening and with friends and the various trends that are going on in ministry, which brings me to what I really want to talk about today, and that is how to get by and get through this time as a strong and viable Christian. It is not easy to do. Sometimes we are prone toward isolationism or depression, thinking that our very faith, our spiritual life must be somehow put on hold until we can reconvene again in our normal fashion. Well, the day will come when we are able to do that, but until that day comes, there is much that you can do to help revitalize and keep your soul fresh. I would like to tell you about that in just a moment, but before I do, let me tell you that this coming Sunday will be the 16th broadcast that I've gone directly to the radio station to speak to not only you, but the entire community who are wisely staying inside and trying their very best to slow the spread of this disease. There's 3 things that we know we can do. We can socially distance right now. We can wash our hands a lot. And we can wear face masks when we go out in public. So I encourage you, and I try to set the example when I do all of those things. This coming Sunday, I'm going to be speaking on the theme of the faithful fisherman, starting off with a passage from the gospel that deals with a fishing journey that Peter and the other disciples who were fishermen as well encountered with Jesus. I think it's a fascinating story, and it might also give you a clue that I've been thinking a little bit about fishing myself these days. But on to the topic. How do we maintain our souls when we have to be separated? We can't go into the church building and meet with our friends and maybe our normalized routine. Well, I encourage you to find new disciplines or revive old ones. One of those that I think is so helpful is that of reading. We have a wonderful library. You can come in during the mornings, check out a book. You're welcome to do so. You probably have a library at home, and many of you know very well how to order a book easily online and have it shipped to you. I would encourage you to do reading and do it in a broad way so that it might help you to take this time where you can't do something else to do something that is very worthwhile. And right now, I'd just like to share with you a few things that I'm reading, which you might take as a recommendation. You might not. They're very individualized to me. They're things that I have been interested in, but I thought you might like to see some of the variety and some of the books that I've been reading. Some I've just finished, some I'm reading again, some I am taking my time going through. So it just depends on which book it is. Now, let me start with the Bible. I know oftentimes I have people ask me, which Bible should I read or which Bible do you read? Well, I read a lot of translations, but the first one I usually read is on my cell phone. I have an English Standard Version Bible loaded onto my cell phone. I oftentimes go to that very first because it's very, very convenient to do. And it's easy to do. You can download an app for that. But by my bedside, I have this one here. This is The Message by Gene Peterson. It is a paraphrased translation of the Bible, but it's written in a modern vernacular, which makes it enjoyable to read. And he usually gets it right. Another one that I use, particularly when I'm more engaged in study, is the New Revised Version. So I have two there that help guide me. And very often I will hear a verse or think of something, and I'll look it up and counter look at it in various translations to see what that is all about. I'm also enjoying reading some older books. Carol Trogdon, in my Sunday school class, has loaned me her copy of A Man Called Peter. This is the story of Peter Marshall, written by Catherine Marshall, and it was made into a very famous movie some years ago. This is an old book, but it tells the story of a remarkable man named Peter Marshall, and he's kind of a hero of mine. He's a preaching hero. In fact, this coming Sunday, I'm going to be quoting Peter Marshall in a wonderful observation that he made. Peter Marshall would really be great. If we could bring him back and have him preach now, we'd be all right. Another one that is an old book, and you might have seen a movie made about it. It's called The Keys to the Kingdom. Now, this is so old. This book actually has a honest to goodness wormhole in it. I don't know if you can see that right there. A real bookworm has eaten to this. This book was made into a movie. I saw the movie some time ago. I asked Dawn if she could find the book to me. It's written by A.J. Cronin, and came out around, I think they're 1930s or something like that. But it's a story of a Roman Catholic priest and his adventures and journeys in ministry. It is I think, a wonderful book and well worth reading. Another one I've read is a book of poetry, of all things, poetry. But this was given to me by Harry, a friend of mine, and it has been a wonderful read. This person is a local North Carolinian who wrote this book of poetry. Now, there is poetry in this book. I read a wonderful poem today. Jan Walsh gave me this book. It's the Bonhoeffer Reader. It's probably not something that anybody else has read. It's a very highly theological book by Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and it is one of those books you just don't fly through. You have to read a little bit and think a lot, and I do that with this book. In fact, I read a couple passages out of it today, which were very moving. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, by the way, was a German pastor during the rise of Nazi Germany, who was eventually arrested and then killed before the end of World War II. I also have been reading in the area of racial relations. I've been doing that for some time. I most recently finished this book, The Color of Compromise by Jemar Tisby, and it is a history of America. And really how the race history goes. Another one I've read, finished, I read both of these with a group of people. This one is called America's Original Sin by Jim Wallis. And Jim Wallis is a fantastic Christian who has looked at the issue and tried to understand it from a certain perspective. And if you are like a lot of folks and you're going, what is all this about? Maybe if we just stop talking about it, it would be better. It'd go away. I would encourage you to get a copy of The Color of Compromise or America's Original Sin. Just read through it with an open heart and mind, both Christian authors who are writing about this. Now, one book I've been reading for some time is called Bearing the Cross, and this is a thick old book. It is about the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and the way that Martin Luther King interacted with that. And I have been a long-time student and studied Martin Luther King for a long time. Another one that I've read, written by another North Carolinian, Will Willimon, who was a Methodist bishop, is Who Lynched Willie Earl? I heard about this, I guess maybe a year ago. I got a copy of it, and it is a very fascinating book. It's about a young minister who had to confront racism in his own town, and it was in South Carolina, but the story is a fantastic one. And another one that deals with history is The Crucible of Faith and Freedom by Bruce Gorley. Bruce is one of our CBF guys. He's a historian, but he's taken the events of the Civil War in a chronological fashion and related to how they related to Baptist both in the North and the South. And this is a prized book. It really is good. Another one that deals with history that I've been looking at and was given to me by Joanne Comer is Speeches That Changed the World. I pick this up every night. That I did this morning. I read a speech by one of the most recent presidents of Czechoslovakia. It had some wonderful thoughts in there, and one by George Bush, and tried to understand in the context of the times and what they were saying. Some profound things were mentioned. Now, I've also read some fun things too, and one of those is The Admirals, which is a book that was given to me by my son. And this is all about the Navy. So, I like that kind of stuff. And the final one I'll tell you about is, some of you are not going to like this one, but I'm just going to tell you anyway. The head ball coach, Steve Spurrier, tells the story of Steve Spurrier. I always like to remind people that the 3 Heisman Trophy winners from Florida, Steve Spurrier, Danny Werfel, and Tim Tebow, all Christian men. Steve Spurrier happened to be raised by a minister, as was Tim Tebow. And Danny Werfel, I think, became a minister. So I'm pretty sure he became a minister. So anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day. Find some books that will enrich your soul. Read them. And I love you. And I'll be looking forward to you joining me this coming Sunday.